Hello and welcome to Fast and Factual. I'm Utsaf Parekh and here are the top stories of the day. We begin with updates from the Israel-Hamas war. Israel says its military continues to deepen its ground incursion in northern and southern Gaza. An increased number of forces were deployed in eastern Khan Yunis. Israel says this is to focus on forcing militants out of underground tunnels. An Israeli military spokesperson added that they have killed more than 2,000 terrorists from the air, sea and land since the end of the previous truce. Meanwhile, the United Nations Security Council has delayed a critical vote to deliver aid to Gaza again. The World Health Organization says northern Gaza is now without any functional hospitals due to a lack of fuel, staff and supplies. The WHO says that only 9 out of 36 health facilities are partially functional in the whole of Gaza. All of them are in the southern part of the enclave. The WHO has reiterated its calls for a humanitarian ceasefire in the region. Hamas launched a salvo of rockets at the Israeli city of Tel Aviv. Reports say shrapnel fell in several parts of the greater Tel Aviv area. Officials also reported multiple impact points in the south of the city. However, there was no immediate word on casualties. Former US President Donald Trump's daughter Ivanka and her husband Jared Kushner were in Israel yesterday. They visited Kibbutz Kfar Aza, one of the hardest hit communities during Hamas's October 7th attack. Israel's Knesset press office released a video of their visit. It showed Ivanka Trump and Kushner looking at burnt-out houses and meeting residents and the friends of victims. British Foreign Minister David Cameron met with his Egyptian counterpart Sameh Shoukry in Cairo yesterday. Both officials agreed on protecting maritime trade corridors in the Red Sea amid the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. The former British Prime Minister said that threats to the trade route will be damaging to Egypt, the UK and global trade as a whole. This comes as Yemen's Houthi rebel group continues to attack vessels on the Red Sea. The Houthis have vowed to continue attacking vessels until Israel ceases its operations in Gaza. In other top news, a mass shooting has left at least 14 people dead and 25 injured at a university in the Czech Republic's capital, Prague. The gunman has also been shot dead by the police. The police say that the 24-year-old gunman had been a student at the university. They added that he also shot down his father earlier in the day. However, the motive for his shootings isn't known yet. Officials say this is the deadliest attack in the Czech Republic's recent history. Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, came under a Russian drone attack late last night. Officials have reported strikes on various residential districts. Kyiv's mayor said that a drone had hit a block of flats in one of the districts, triggering a massive fire. One person was also injured in a separate attack on the eastern bank of the Dnipro River. In the US, 3 police officers from Washington were acquitted in the killing of an unarmed black man. The officers were found not guilty of murder or manslaughter charges. In 2020, the officers punched 33-year-old Manuel Ellis, put him in a chokehold and shot him with a stun gun. Following this, Ellis's dying pleas for air sparked widespread protests. The case was similar to the murder of George Floyd in the same year. Rudy Giuliani, a close ally of former US President Donald Trump, has filed for bankruptcy. Giuliani said he had between $100 to $500 million in liabilities and $1 to $10 million in assets. This comes days after a US court decided he must pay more than $148 million in damages to 2 former Georgia election workers. The court found Giuliani guilty of defaming the poll workers. Giuliani had falsely accused them of helping rig the 2020 US presidential election. The Pentagon has said that top military officers from the US have held a virtual meeting with their Chinese counterparts. This is their first conversation in more than a year. In 2022, China had stopped high-level talks with the US. This was after then US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan. However, last month, the leaders of both the countries finally agreed to resume their talks. China has unveiled new measures to rein in spending and content in online games. Beijing's top regulator published draft rules that would clamp down on practices encouraging players to spend more money and time online. The new measures include a ban on rewards for frequent logins, forced player duels, and any content that violates state secrets. The move wiped out roughly $54 billion of Tencent Holdings' value. A Hong Kong court has rejected media tycoon Jimmy Lai's request to dismiss sedition charges. Lai is facing a trial under Hong Kong's draconian national security law. His lawyers argued that the charge was laid after the expiry of a 6-month time limit for filing a complaint under the criminal code. Jimmy Lai's trial has been adjourned until January 2nd. That's when the court is expected to formally record his plea and begin the 80-day trial. Thailand's parliament has moved closer to legalizing same-sex marriage. The lawmakers overwhelmingly passed 4 draft bills on same-sex marriage in their first reading. The country will now form a committee to merge the 4 bills into one. Following that, further debates and votes are expected to take place next year. While that is a progressive step, Thai activists have said that discrimination is still pervasive socially. French President Emmanuel Macron will reportedly be the chief guest at India's Republic Day celebrations next year. This marks the 6th instance of a French leader being invited to the momentous event on January 26th. Earlier, India had invited US President Joe Biden for the celebrations. However, Biden expressed his inability to visit New Delhi in January. In climate news, parts of Southern California will see continued rainfall on Friday as an atmospheric river threatens even more flooding. The storm system has already drenched parts of coastal Southern California, with some roadways being flooded after rainfall between 1 to 5 inches was recorded. Some areas even witnessed more than 6 inches of rainfall. The deluge led to knee-deep floodwaters in some areas and road closures and evacuation warnings in Ventura County. A study by James Hutton Institute in Aberdeen says Scotland's climate is changing faster than expected. The study said February in some areas is already 2.5 degrees Celsius warmer, while rainfall is at levels forecast for 2050. Scientists raise concern over the change that could affect food production and efforts to protect peatlands, which store carbon. "200 countries agreed to reduce the global consumption of fossil fuels and signed a deal at the COP28 summit, but climate activist Greta Thunberg calls it a stab in the back for most nations affected by global warming. Thunberg says that the COP28 deal will not stop temperatures rising beyond critical levels. Scientists say rising global temperatures will trigger catastrophic and irreversible impacts. It's that time of year when mutton birds make their annual return to Australia, but scientists have raised concerns after thousands of mutton birds, or short-tailed shearwaters, washed up on Australia's east coast. The mass migratory bird deaths were seen in New South Wales, Queensland and Tasmania. Scientists say mutton bird deaths have increased in frequency and that the reason behind it is still not known. Cold waters of the Arctic absorb as much as 180 million metric tons of carbon per year. This is more than 3 times what New York City emits annually. So the Arctic waters are one of the Earth's critical carbon sinks. But there's a new finding by researchers from France, the US and Canada. It reveals that thawing permafrost and carbon-rich runoff from Canada's Mackenzie River trigger part of the Arctic Ocean to release more CO2 than it absorbs. Scientists say since the 1970s, the Arctic has warmed 3 times faster than anywhere else on Earth. Scientists investigating how Antarctica's ice sheets retreated in the deep past have made an alarming observations. Findings of a new analysis suggest that the West Antarctic ice sheet is closer to collapse than previously thought. This threatens 3 to 3.5 meters of long-term sea level rise if the world is unable to hold warming to the 1.5 degrees Celsius target of the Paris Agreement. On to business and tech news. Apple will no longer replace smartwatches that are out of warranty. The decision to stop watch replacements affects most new Apple Watches sold since 2020. This includes the Series 6, 7, 8 and Ultra, in addition to the current 9 and Ultra 2. All of those models include the blood oxygen feature, for which Apple is facing a patent dispute. Social media platform X, formerly known as Twitter, suffered a massive global outage yesterday. It was down for thousands of users globally. Users were unable to view posts on the platform. On logging in, they could only see a message saying quote-unquote, "Welcome to X." However, the issue has now been resolved and the app is functioning around the world. Cryptocurrency exchange Coinbase has secured a crypto license in France. France's watchdog has given Coinbase a virtual asset service provider approval. This will allow the company to offer its full suite of retail and institutional products and services in the country. Coinbase has been in the process of expanding its services in Italy, Spain and France since last year. The share prices of Nike tumbled yesterday, following around 11% in post-market trading. The slide came after the sportswear giant cut its sales outlook for the year. It now expects revenue to grow by just about 1%. The company also missed its second quarter revenue estimates. The US Consumer Protection Authority has warned people to immediately stop using Chinese seller Doraemon's magnetic ball sets. This is after its loose, hazardous magnets resulted in 7 deaths due to ingestion. It was found that the toy contained one or more magnets that were smaller and stronger than what is permitted under federal toy regulation requirements. High-speed freight transportation company Hyperloop One will reportedly shut down. This comes after it failed to win any contracts to build a working Hyperloop. The company has laid off most of its employees and is trying to sell its remaining assets. Hyperloop One was founded in 2014 and raised more than $450 million in funding. In 2020, it also completed the world's first passenger ride on a super high-speed levitating pod system. Honda is recalling about 4.5 million vehicles worldwide. This is over risks associated with its fuel pump. The recall covers various models of Honda Accord, Civic, Odyssey, Passport and Acura. Earlier this month, the firm issued a similar recall in China and Japan over the same issue. Russia has reportedly handed out more than $12 billion in state subsidies and loans to keep its aviation sector afloat. Last year, Western plane makers Airbus and Boeing stopped supplies of services and spare parts. This was following sanctions imposed by Western countries in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Russia is dependent on foreign-made aircraft, but it now faces the tough task of developing its aviation industry alone with domestically sourced parts. Thousands of flight attendants in the US and Canada are attempting to upend the airline industry. They are demanding a fundamental shift to their labor contracts. This week, Canadian airline Air Transat presented a tentative contract to workers. It has proposed to pay its crew not just for flying, but also for hours spent boarding passengers or waiting in airports in between flights. Flight attendants are hoping other airlines will follow Transat's lead. An unexpected strike by French workers at Eurotunnel interrupted service and the closure of terminals in France and Britain. Employees were striking against the operator Getlink over bonus payments. The company said that the unions had earlier rejected a bonus payment of more than $1,000. They are asking for triple the amount. Moving to sports, let's start with cricket. India beat South Africa by 78 runs in yesterday's ODI match. Sanju Samson scored his maiden ODI century as the men in blue scored 296 runs. South Africa were bowled out for 218 runs in the 45th over. Left-arm pacer Arshdeep Singh took 4 wickets to collapse the Proteas. India clinched the 3-match ODI series 2-1. The West Indies beat England by 4 wickets in yesterday's T20 match. England batted first and were bowled out for just 132 runs in the final over. During the chase, Shia Hope scored an unbeaten 43 runs to steer the West Indies to victory. With the win, the West Indies have clinched the 5-match series 3-2. The Zimbabwe cricket team's head coach Dave Hutton has resigned from his duties. This comes after Zimbabwe failed to qualify for the upcoming T20 World Cup. Hutton says he feels a new face needs to lead Zimbabwe. He had been appointed as Zimbabwe's head coach in June last year. Meanwhile, Zimbabwe's Cricket Association has suspended Wesley Madhevire and Brandon Mavuta. This is because both players failed a doping test. Blood samples of Madhevire and Mavuta had traces of a recreational drug. They will now face a disciplinary hearing. England all-rounder Tom Curran has been given a 4-game ban in Australia's Big Bash T20 League. This comes after Curran was found guilty of intimidating an umpire ahead of one of the matches. Curran, who plays for the Sydney Sixers, denied the charges but lost the appeal. In football, a European court has ruled that UEFA and FIFA have breached European law. This is because UEFA and FIFA attempted to prevent the formation of the Super League. The Super League is going to be a seasonal football competition for clubs in Europe. It will compete against UEFA's Champions League. In La Liga, Real Madrid beat Alaves 1-0 in last night's match. The game was scoreless in the first half. In the 54th minute, Real were reduced to 10 players after Nacho was sent off for a nasty foul. Lucas Vazquez scored the winning goal for Real 2 minutes into second half injury time. Lionel Messi will launch his first full campaign with Inter Miami from February next year. Messi will be seen playing his first game at Inter Miami's home turf against Real Salt Lake. However, Messi is likely to miss 6 matches for Inter Miami as he will be playing for his national side Argentina in the World Cup qualifiers. In hockey, Indian women beat Ireland 2-1 in the Five Nations tournament. Deepika and Sangeeta Kumari scored goals for India. Ireland's captain Catherine Mullen scored the only goal for her team. This was India's first win out of the 5 matches that have taken place at the tournament. Indian wrestler Sakshi Malik has resigned from the sport. The Olympian quit the sport in protest over the new chief of the Wrestling Federation of India. The previous chief of the Wrestling Federation was forced to step down after being accused of sexually abusing female athletes. Now, a close aide of the former chief has been appointed as the new president, sparking the resignation of Sakshi Malik. In entertainment news, Fast and Furious franchise star Vin Diesel has been accused of sexual battery and creating a hostile work environment. The lawsuit has been filed by a former assistant in a Los Angeles court. Diesel's former assistant, Asta Johnson, alleges that he forced himself on her in a hotel suite in Atlanta. The complaint states that Vin Diesel ignored her clear statements of non-consent. French President Emmanuel Macron is facing accusations of siding with sexual aggressors after saying that film icon Gérard Depardieu was the target of a manhunt. 74-year-old filmmaker Depardieu was charged with rape in 2020 and faces sexual assault charges by over a dozen women. Macron says he feels huge admiration for Depardieu, who he called an immense actor. Actor John Schneider is reportedly under Secret Service investigation. This is after he wrote on social media platform X that Joe Biden should be publicly hung. The Dukes of Hazzard actor deleted this soon after. He wrote it in response to a tweet in which Biden expressed that former US President Donald Trump poses many threats to the country. Director Martin Scorsese will be honored with the Lifetime Achievement Award at the Berlin International Film Festival. Scorsese, whose latest film Killers of the Flower Moon is nominated for 7 Golden Globes, will be awarded the honorary Golden Bear. The ceremony will be held on the 20th of February. Actor and comedian Joe Coy will be hosting the Golden Globes. He's been picked by producers for what they say is his infectious energy and relatable humor. The 81st Annual Golden Globes will take place on January 7th. Greta Gerwig's Barbie leads the nominations with 9 nods, closely followed by release date and meme companion Oppenheimer. Barbie will also be shining at the annual celebration of cinematic excellence, the Oscars. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences has unveiled the 2024 Oscars shortlist. Greta Gerwig's film is leading the pack with 5 nominations. Killers of the Flower Moon, Poor Things and Maestro are the other contenders. If reports are to be believed, Robert Pattinson and Suki Waterhouse are engaged. The couple recently sparked a buzz when Waterhouse was photographed wearing a diamond ring on her left hand. Sources say they are likely to get married soon. In November, the couple announced that they're expecting their first child together. Glee star Darren Cross and wife Mia Swire have announced that they're expecting their second baby together. The singer shared an edited photo of himself, his wife, and their daughter, Bluesy Bell, with 2 positive pregnancy tests on his Instagram account. He captioned it, "Coming soon." Pop star Jennifer Lopez says she and Ben Affleck have post-traumatic stress disorder or PTSD from the spotlight on their early relationship when they first dated 2 decades ago. In an interview, J.Lo explained why she decided to document their relationship on her new album, saying that as artists we've to follow our heart. J.Lo and Affleck rekindled their relationship in April 2021 and married a year later. K-pop star G-Dragon says he will launch an anti-drug foundation to help people. This comes after he was cleared of allegations of illegal drug use. Police had been investigating the singer and rapper and decided not to charge him after they had not obtained testimonies to support the charges against him. That's all for this episode of Fast and Factual. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to Firstpost.